Hello again, third grade, and welcome to lesson 5-2. So last time we talked about multiplying within by using a multiplication chart. For this lesson, we're going to work on multiplying and dividing to see how we're able to use that information from the multiplication chart to help us find a missing factor when we have a division equation. Let's watch our short video lesson and then get into those notes.
How can you use a multiplication table to solve division problems? Think about this question during the lesson.
Here is one corner of the multiplication table.
How does a multiplication table help you solve a multiplication problem?
Now remember from our previous lesson, we can use a multiplication table or a multiplication chart like this one to solve a multiplication problem by tracing our factors. So our factors in this example are the ones that are in those blue bars across the top and down the left side. So if I wanted to find 2 times 3, I'm going to trace across from the 2 and trace down from the 3 to see what number I land on. And that number is going to be my product. So I can find the product of 2 times 3 as 6 by using my multiplication chart.
You find one factor in the left column and the other factor in the top row. You go across the row and down the column until they meet at the product. Write a missing factor equation and then use the multiplication table to find 15 divided by 3. What multiplication problem could you solve to find 15 divided by 3?
Select your answer.
Now remember your related facts and your fact families with multiplication and division. So you can look at this and read it backwards to figure out what your multiplication problem is. So if 15 divided by 3 is a number, that means a number times 3 is going to be equal to 15, or 3 times the number is going to be equal to 15. Remember, when you're dividing, your dividend, that's your big number, is the number you start with. When you're multiplying, that big number is going to be your product. So you kind of flip it around and read it backwards. So over here, our related multiplication fact is going to be 3 times a number equals 15.
3 times what number is equal to 15? Look where rows and columns intersect in a multiplication table to help you solve a division problem. Step 1. You know one factor is 3. Find the 3 in the first column of this multiplication table. Step 2. You know the product is 15. Follow the row the 3 is in until you come to 15. Step 3. Look straight up to the top of that column of the table. The number on the top of the column is 5. The missing factor is 5. So, 3 times 5 is equal to 15. And 15 divided by 3 is equal to 5.
Okay, so for this section, we can choose any one of these equations to solve using this multiplication table. So we can pick the second one and do 42 divided by 7.
42 divided by 7 equals 6.
So what you would do is you would go across the 7 until you get to the number 42. Once you've found that number, you're going to look straight up until you get to the top of that column to figure out what your missing factor is. Now, if we did it for 30 divided by 5, same thing. You're going to look across the 5s until you get to 30 and then look up.
30 divided by 5 equals 6.
We can do the same thing for 32 divided by 8.
32 divided by 8 equals 4.
So you would go across the 8 row until you get to 32, and then you would look all the way to the top of that column to see what the other factor is. Same thing for 28 divided by 4.
28 divided by 4 equals 7.
So we looked all the way across that 4 row until we got to 28, and then we looked up to the top of our multiplication chart to figure out what our number was.
Now you know how you can use a multiplication table to solve division problems.
All right, let's jump into our notes for this lesson. How can you use a multiplication table to multiply and to divide? So we already know how to multiply with it. That part is easy. And we just learned some additional strategies to help us divide. So remember, multiplication and division are related. They're part of the same fact families. We can have multiplication facts that are related to division facts because they are inverses or opposites of each other. So for example, how can I find 15 divided by 3 using a multiplication chart? So I have to think, if I have 15 divided by 3, what number times 3 is going to equal 15? So I can look either down here from the 3 or I can look across here from the 3. Remember, with our commutative property, it doesn't matter what order we work in, we will still get to our same answer when we're multiplying. So I wanted to look down from the 3 column until I got to 15. So I looked down from the 3 column until I hit 15, and then I went across and I found that my other factor is 5. So 5 times 3 equals 15. So I trace down from the 3 until I reach the 15, and then I trace across to find my missing factor, which is 5. So 5 times 3 is 15, which means 15 divided by 3 is 5. These are related facts that are part of the same fact family. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our guided practice for this lesson. The first question says, explain how to use a multiplication table to solve a missing factor equation. So when you have a missing factor, you're looking at a division equation, or something times a number is equal to whatever your product is. You can reverse that by saying your product divided by the number, by the factor that you have is equal to your missing factor. So we can find the factor that we know in that first column. And then we can trace down until we find the product that we're working with from our equation. And then the number that we get to when we trace across from there is going to be our missing factor. So if we have our multiplication chart again, if I said 24 is equal to 3 times something. So I know that one of my factors is 3, and I know my product is 24. So I'm going to look across the 3 column or the 3 row until I get to 24. And then I'm going to trace it up that column to see what my other factor is. So I know 3 times 8 is equal to 24, because if I trace those across, that's the number where they meet. For number 2, they gave us missing numbers and that we were going to use our multiplication chart for. So I'm going to zoom out a good amount for you guys to be able to see, because I'm going to go through these on the multiplication chart with you so that you're able to use it when you're working on your independent practice. So 24 divided by 6. So I know one of my factors is going to be 6. So I'm going to trace across the 6 until I get to 24. So I went all the way across the 6 until I got to 24. And then I went straight up to the top of that column to figure out what my other factor was. So I found out that 6 times 4 was equal to 24. So 24 divided by 6 was equal to 4. Now we had 63 divided by 9. So one of my factors I know is 9. So I'm going to take a look at my 9s over here. See if I can come up a little bit farther. There we go. I'm going to take a look at my 9s because that's one of the factors that I know. And I know I need to get to the 63. So I'm going to take a look at my 9s and trace it all the way across until I hit 63. And then I'm going to go all the way to the top of that column to find my missing factor. So my other factor was 7. So 9 times 7 is 63, which means 63 divided by 9 is equal to 7. Our next question says 25 divided by 5 equals a number. So I know that one of my factors is 5, so I can trace across the 5s until I get to 25. And then I will trace it all the way back up to find my missing number. So it turns out that 5 times 5 is equal to 25. So 25 divided by 5 is also equal to 5. And my last one for your guided practice in this lesson is 42 divided by 7. So again, the part that I know is it's a factor of 7. Or 42 is a multiple of 7. 7 times what is going to give me 42? So I'm going to look at my 7s and I'm going to trace them across until I get to 42. Once I've gotten to 42, I'm going to look straight up to the top of that column and I landed on a 6. So 7 times 6 is 42, which means 42 divided by 7 is also equal to 6. That's it for this lesson. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.